Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Mary Grace. This is Mary Grace TV, and we have a great show lined up for you today. This is an interview that we're going to do with my good friend JT Lawson. He's been on the show a couple times before. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that if you have trouble finding the show, if you're not sure when we're going live or when we post content, the best thing to do is go to marygracemedia.com. You're going to want to bookmark that website, put it in your favorites. You can click on it very easily at any time and then just go straight to the channel that you want to watch on. The other thing you're going to do there is you're going to go to the bottom of the website and you're going to join the mailing list. Then you'll get an email and you don't have to rely on these social media platforms to tell you when the show is on. Last thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the shopping tab, Mary Grace Media shopping tab. It's also known as the Mary Grace Media Sky Mall. For those of you who used to do that when you were flying, you would shop from the Sky Mall. It's now on my website. So all you have to do is go there, click on the shopping tab, and just scroll through the America First companies that partner with us here at Mary Grace Media. We have lots of things that you are probably looking for at other stores, and you can buy them from the people that you know don't hate you. And those are our partners over at marygracemedia.com. We've got the pillow guys, we've got the freeze-dried beef, we've got the wellness store, we've got superfoods, pretty much everything you can think of. If it's not there, you probably don't need it. So just go over to marygracemedia.com and get rolling there with what you need. So without further ado, I'm going to bring JT on. JT is affectionately known in my world as the millionaire millennial, and he is doing great things. He's come from a life of basically not achieving to super achieving. And he wrote a book about it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the book, but we're also going to talk about some life lessons. And if you are a little bit older, if you consider yourself a boomer or a Gen X, and you think that looking at this young whippersnapper doesn't apply to you, don't touch that dial. Don't leave the channel because you're going to get some wisdom. You're going to get loaded with wisdom today. By the time you leave, you're not going to want to go away. Stick around and listen to what JT has to say. JT, good to have you. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, it's great. I really appreciate you going on. And for the people who haven't subscribed to your show, I don't know why they haven't yet. You put out great stuff, and I really enjoy you lowering your standards and letting me come on today. So it's great.
No, I love having you on the show. And by the way, I just want to remind you that pretty much all of my audience, a lot of my audience are trying to figure out a way to get their daughters and or granddaughters introduced to you. They're at least the eligible ones. So no
That's fair.
pressure, no
Yeah.
pressure. But JT is a great catch, you guys, and you're about to find that out if you've never listened to him before. I never play matchmaker, but it's gonna happen, and it's probably gonna happen through Mary Grace TV. I'm just saying it.
No, well, listen,
We're
I'm on board. So if we find somebody, I'm for it. So
okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit. Let's just give a background of the book. You have been on the show, but it's been a minute. So
yeah.
let's talk about your book. Let's talk about, why you wrote it, a little bit of your history. And if I could get you to scoot over to your left a little bit, you won't be flying out
Other
other
one.
way, the other left. Okay. That way we're not going to lose you or see just half your head. So
There we
here we
go.
go. I know Clay says to do things till your head explodes, but I don't think that's what he means. Here we go. Talk about your book. I'm
Yeah.
going to
So
minimize myself.
no, that's great. So I wrote this
Ooh, ooh,
book,
ooh, ooh.
what I learned from my millionaire mentor, and it's things I learned from Clay. So basically, I spent my whole life being motivated. When it came to sports, I was very motivated, and I would do stuff at a high rate, and I would because I was motivated often, so I would always do stuff, and I had drive to uh, be. I would quote unquote say better than other people because I kept comparing myself to other people. But when it came to business and other things, and even sports, I dealt with busyness instead of business. So I would just go really fast, but in a circle. It was kind of like I was on a flyovers, and Dave described it as I was a boat and I had a massive motor, but the motor was out of the water, so it was just going super fast, and but I wasn't moving anywhere. And and I think that's I think a lot of people struggle with that, but it took me a little bit. I had to understand that that motivation doesn't get it done, discipline does, and especially self-discipline. So I've been through the military, and that was somebody else forcing discipline on me. So I did a lot of through basic training and other things. I did great if I have somebody else over me telling me what to do. But then when it came to after college or after the military or other stuff, I realized, well, now it's a blank slate and everything's up to me. And so now what do? And so if you're not careful, you start filling your time up with things that don't matter. And so today I want to talk about the book. I also want to talk about because I've been on your show before, and there's been a lot of great feedback. But the two things people push back on the most, I would say, is time and age. And I want to talk about that. But I wrote this book just because right now I just have a burning desire to teach other people. So as I learn, I just want to. Every time I learn something new, I'm like, God, if everyone knew this, the world would be a better place where I could change their life. Because you see these people and they're struggling through life and they're struggling with other things. And I just, to myself, I think, oh, I wish I could just talk to them and have a conversation with them. Because I know if they were coachable, I could change their life. So my hope is that somebody listening to this buys the book and they get inspired, they get motivated. But not only that, they take actionable stuff from the book to change their life. Because you get one life, and you can do with it what you want. So you're going to have struggles. But if you read the book, you'll understand you can pick your struggles. So no one goes through life without struggling. It's impossible. But you can choose your struggles. So I just want to hopefully encourage some people today, and I hope they get my book. And I made it small on purpose, so it's not massive, so it doesn't take a long time to read. Mary Grace, you read it. You said you got inspired from it. I'm really hoping that's what people get from it.
It's so good, and I have the QR code up here, but people can also go to your website, jtlawson.com, and
Yes.
order directly from you, and so that's one way to get it. I love what you're saying right now, and I wanna dive into this a little bit more. The mentor that you mentioned is Clay Clark. Clay has been on our show numerous times, and, he's just amazing. He's incredibly inspiring, but he's a man of action, and that is why we are talking about him. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what you're saying. You want to motivate people, you want to teach them, you want to give them what they need regardless of age. And I think that they say that when you want somebody to hear something, really to hear it, they have to hear it 6, 7, 8, 9 times. And so I will keep having you back on the show until it sinks in with somebody, because there are people who are listening today, maybe they're multitasking, maybe they're half listening because they think that this young whippersnapper doesn't have anything to teach them. But one day it's going to hit you, and JT is going to say something that is going to get to you, and you're going to go, "Oh, I'm 70 and I needed to hear that. I needed that slap hug right now to get me to the next step." And so let's jump in, because I say you're not too young, you're not too old, it's not too late. And so let's jump from there and talk
Yeah.
about.
Absolutely. Well, first, what I'll do is I'm going to do some math for people. So I failed math multiple times, and I got a D in all the ones that I passed. So I barely passed math. But I'm going to start out by doing some math, just because I don't think people actually think about it. So a lot of people say, I don't have time, because I'll come on and I'll talk about things they can do and actionable steps. But I want to put to rest one of the things most people argue with, which is I don't have time. Everyone has that excuse. However, me, you, Clay Clark, I don't agree with him, but Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all of us have the same amount of time in a day, but some of us get done more than others. So I want to break it down for people because there's 168 hours in a week. So let's do the math. If you sleep 8 hours a day, actually somebody's arguing with me, so I'm going to say if you sleep 9 hours a day, you need more sleep. I get it. That's 63 hours. So now you have 112 hours left. Okay. Then if you work for 40 hours a week, because that's what most people work. Most people have a 40-hour a week job. Now you have 72 hours left. So I have 72 hours left. Now there's someone else arguing, saying, well, I have to eat. Sure. Okay. We're going to give you 1 hour for 3 meals. So that's 21 hours a week. So Now somebody's arguing. Stay with me. That's 51 hours left. Now someone's like, well, I have to drive the work. I don't have work remote, so I need more time on the work part of it. Sure. Let's give you 5 hours of drive time for work. One, I want to touch on that for a second because every successful person turns their vehicle into a movable library.
Yes.
So, what I mean by that is a lot of people, you have to be careful on what you're listening to while you're driving because you're probably listening to brain rot. You're probably listening to music. You're listening to rap music. You're listening to other things, or you're listening to podcasts, but that aren't educational. Now, I'm not telling you that you have to listen to things that are going to make you more money, or you have to listen to books or audiobooks, but just listen to something that you're interested in that is going to better your future. So maybe you like gardening and you want to listen to gardening podcasts. Sure, that's great. That's fine. As long as it's going to better your future. Because you can spend that hour commute to work and you can either get bitter or you can get better during it.
Mm.
And you can either go down like this or you can go up like this. So I just want to talk about that for a second because you can get that 5 hours of drive time back if you just use it to be productive.
Yeah, I have a story about that
Yeah, go
about
for it.
listening. When I was teaching, I used to listen to NPR on the way to work. I know it's what was I thinking? But anyway, I realized, and it was like All Things Considered, and they talk in that really hypnotic voice, and somehow they get the panic porn up to level 10 every single time. Every morning, the world's going to end,
Yeah.
and it's going to be catastrophic, and the blah blah blah. And by the time I got to work, I would be at such a high level of angst. And I was teaching elementary school. So it's not a good combination to walk
Yeah.
into your classroom thinking that the world's going to end every single day. And all of a sudden it hit me that that's what was happening. And we didn't have the internet then. We didn't have all the choices of podcasts, but I did have a CD player. And I made choices to listen to music. I chose to listen to worship music and things like that that would be inspirational, that would change, that would get me into a better mood. And it's very real. It was highly effective for me to make that change because then I was focused on positive. I was focused on God. I was focused on making good changes for the world and not walking into work thinking, okay, the world's it's over. It's over that and there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
And so that's just there you go. And I'm thankful that I realized that on my own. But some people don't. They're not quite there. They haven't gotten to that point. So keep going.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
Well,
give that
and on
illustration.
that, I would have people just think about what you're intaking every day. Because the only thing you control in life is your own mind. That's it. You can't control the weather. You can't control what other people say. But you can control your mind, and what comes into it is super important.
Yeah.
Because if you hear the same thing over and over and over, it's like Chinese water torture. It's just hitting you one drop at a time on the forehead.
Yeah.
It's gonna get in there,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
whether you say it as a joke or not. So I heard people all the time in high school say, "Oh, I want to kill myself," and it was just, and they're saying it as a joke, because kids don't really know any better and they don't understand the significance of it. But
Yeah.
once you say that over and over and over and over, it starts to hit home. Or once you keep telling yourself, "I don't have time," "I don't have time," whatever you tell yourself over and over and over, that thought then becomes an action.
So
So
good.
so
Mhm.
that's an extreme example of I'm going to kill myself. But even the little stuff, like if you're saying, "Oh, I have to go to work," shut up. You get to go to work. You don't live somewhere where you can't work, or you don't live in a communist country. You don't live in North Korea where you're going to be forced to work. You get to choose your struggles. So you're
Yeah.
blessed. I mean, you have your health, and you have your thoughts, and that's really the only thing you have. And one of the things, so I have my to-do list I use every day to knock stuff off. But on the back of it, there's a quote by Robert Kiyosaki that I look at every day that says, "The single most powerful asset we have is our mind. If it is trained well, it can create enormous wealth in what seems to be an instant." Now, your goal might not be wealth. Okay, that's fine. I don't want my goals to be yours, and your goals aren't going to be mine, and we're not all going to have the same goals. I just want to give you actionable
Mhm.
steps to get you to your goals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you whatever you put in your mind all day every day, it's gonna you're gonna reap what you sow, and it's gonna start to really manifest. So whether good or bad. So that's why I would challenge
Mhm.
everyone today to really the whole day track what's going in your mind, track what's coming out of your mouth, because you're saying, "Oh, the weather sucks," or "Oh, I have to go to work," or "Oh," it's you just gotta flip it, and you just gotta be positive. And people think
Yeah.
it's a little thing, but that's like
Yeah.
that's
Big
your
thing.
mindset, and it turns into everything.
Yeah.
And one more thing is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So that's
Mhm.
if you are there's a story, I forget who told it. I'm not trying to take it off of someone. I just am for blanking who told it right now. But uh, there was a guy, he was playing golf, and he was talking to his golf partner about a business deal, and his golf partner uh, cheated. So he moved the ball, or he's cheated somehow on the ball. And the guy's wife was like, "Hey, he just cheated," and he was like, "That's just golf." But then it turned out they went ahead and made a deal, and then the partner embezzled money from him. And so how you do one thing in life is how you do everything. So if you're unorganized here, then you're going to be unorganized there. And all that money is an amplifier. So if you are a crappy person, once you earn that money, it is just going to amplify, and you're going to be a more crappy person. So you have to really have so it's one of those where maybe I watch Spider-Man too much, but a great responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility. So when I teach you
Mhm.
these steps, and you're able to gain wealth, even if that's not the goal, the steps in my book teach you how to be successful in anything you want to be. So I wanted to play professional basketball in college. Knowing what I know now, I 100% could have done that. But knowing what I know now, I would not do it, because I have a different perspective on everything. But
Right.
I could have done that. But you can transfer this into anything. Like knowing what I know now, I could be the best bank robber I wanted to be. Or knowing what, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
skills that will make you good at whatever it is you want to be at, and it will get you to whatever goal you want.
Mhm.
But just know that it's an amplifier. Uh
Yeah.
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
It makes me think of Mike Lindell. If you've read his book,
Yeah.
he people don't realize this until they've read the book, but he's the CEO and founder of My Pillow, which is one of our great partners here on the show. Promo code Mary Grace. And he was a professional card counter. He actually mentored with people who did that and taught him. He took himself through card counting school, as it were. And so he had some natural talent, but so when he sat at the tables at the blackjack or 20 sorry, blackjack, I don't poker, whatever it was that was his game, he went in with hours and hours and hours of training, and he got to where, he could do everything pretty much in his sleep, and he could bluff. Like, he learned all of the ways to do that, but it was by what you're saying, by application
Yeah.
and discipline. And that's just a little known thing about him, but it carries over into a lot of the other things he does too, I think. It just I don't know, when you said that, it made me think of him. Everybody should read his book. It's From Crack Addict to CEO, right? From Crack Addict to CEO.
Yeah.
Really good book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's Mike Lindell's great. Met him
Yeah.
multiple times. He's awesome. I've heard him on the phone, and it's funny because he's a very to the point person.
Yes.
So he's like, "Hey, this, that, okay, have a good day," and then he says it's like any
Yeah.
phone call. Because I've heard Clay make phone calls with him. I've never heard Clay on the phone with him for more than 45 seconds. Because Clay's like that too, but and Mike Lindell's like
Yeah.
that. So then when they're both on the phone, it's just the conversation's done, because it's just like, hey, this is what needs to happen. Okay, this is what happened next. And
And
so it's so funny.
what's really funny about that is that, people think that Mike Lindell is so scattered, and I have a theory about that. It's because when from his card counting days, from his days of beating the house and bluffing, he became very good at he developed a persona that was sort of the sloppy addict, drunk, wasn't paying attention to what was going on, easy to pull one over on, things like that. And meanwhile, the whole time he's counting cards. And so when you see him on these media hits that he does, he kind of rambles sometimes. And it to me, it's a head fake, especially for the fake news, because they really think he's not a smart or serious person. And we know we know
Yeah,
differently
he's
because you've
great.
you've seen him conduct business. You understand the way he does things. It's the complete opposite. But to people who haven't taken the time to study him or to understand who he is, they really think that he's sort of a rube. So it's very interesting, but even the way that he presents himself publicly, that's part of his discipline that he's
Yeah.
actually learned. He's like an actor. President Trump does that too.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
anyway, so let's keep going. I want
Sure.
you, can you show us your agenda? This is
Yeah.
something that you carry this around with you, and this never leaves your side. And one of the things that I know that you do every day is that you block out time to plan your day. And can you talk about that? Because I think this is a missing link that a lot of people don't get, and they don't understand the serious implications of doing this or not doing it, of like checking in with yourself every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the math and then I'm going to get back to it because somebody's
Okay.
listening is like, JT, finish the math. You got off track. You went on a
It
rabbit
was
trail.
my fault. It was
So
my fault.
I'm going to finish it because there's, so we're talking about the driving. We said, and I gave you 5 hours for driving. So
Yes.
you can
Okay.
get it back. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to take it away because someone's arguing with me and they're saying, well, I need that time to listen to music. Sure, whatever. So now with all that taken away, you still have 46 hours left in your week. You have a full work week of time to do something productive, to do something that's going to better your life. I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be my goals. I just want to overiterate that. It doesn't have to be the goal of making money, but it can be, I want to have a better relationship with my wife, or I want to have a better relationship with my husband, or I want more time with my kids, or I want to learn this, or I want to read this. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But you have a full other work week after all that stuff is done. So after you've slept, after you've eaten, after you've gone to work, after I gave you time for drive, you still have 46 hours left. That's a whole work week. So you will spend 40 hours working to get somebody else to their goals. So let me say that again, because you are working 40 hours to get somebody else to their goals. Your boss, you working 40 hours, you're getting them to their goals. Now, I realize that you're like, well, I need the paycheck. I get that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a job. I'm saying, but if you're working to get them to their goals and you're not working to get to your own goals, that's an issue. So you really have to remember that, because I'll talk about age for a second, because I'm 29 and I'm very passionate about this subject because I just had an argument with my buddy about it because he's 39. I think he just turned 40, and I was telling him because he was taught, I think it was a pool cleaning company. He was thinking about starting. And he was like, oh, man, but I'm 49. I have the wife and kids now. If I was you, JT, I could do it. But because you're single, you have more time. You have this. No, you're 39. Okay. In 10 years, you're going to be 10 years older no matter what you do. So you might as well do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's another quote on the back of my thing, because I want to tell you right now, a dream or a goal without a deadline is just a dream. And if it's over 10 years, it's not an actual goal. So because you can create enormous amounts of success within 10 years. So if you have it over 10 years, you need to shorten that, because then it's just a goal and it's not, or it's just a dream and it's not a goal. So when I was 25, I set goals for when I was 35. And my goal was to own 2 businesses, to have written 2 books. I'm finishing the second one, by the way. It's a dog training book. I'll send it to you once it's done.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But to have written 2 books, to have 5 rental properties, my favorite places to travel, so I can Airbnb them. But then when I want to visit them, I can just not rent them out that weekend. And then to have a ranch. And then I wanted to bring in a certain amount of money per year. And I set that goal for when I'm 35. Right now I'm 29. I'm probably going to hit all of those goals within the next 2 years. So by the time I'm 31 is what now I've pushed that ahead. But I feel my 35-year-old self begging me to do what I have put on my calendar, because everyone knows who's listening to this, they know what they should be doing. They're just choosing not to because they wake up,
Mhm.
the bed's warm, it's cold outside, it's raining, your significant other is sleeping next to you. You don't want to leave them because it's warmer. You have the excuse of I have to take the kids to school. You have the excuse of whatever it is. And you're always going to have that stuff happen. There's never going to be a
Yeah.
day in your life that's perfect with zero struggle. So you can either get bitter or you can get better. But I feel my 35-year-old self begging me to do it. So there's a quote by Les Brown. I think I've read it on your show before, but I'm going to read it again because they
Read it
need to
again.
hear it 5 to 6 times, like you said. So imagine being on your deathbed, and standing around you is a ghost of the dreams, the ideas, the abilities, the talents given to you by life, that you, for whatever reason, you never went after that dream. You never acted on those ideas. You never used those talents. You never used those gifts. And there they are, standing beside your bed, looking at you with large, angry eyes, saying, "We came to you, and only you could have given us life. And now we must die with you forever." So every time I read that quote, I always get chills because I feel it so passionately that in 10 years, I'm going to be 10 years older, whether
Yeah.
I do what I need to or not. So in 10 years, there's two me's in 10 years. There's the one me who refuses to get up at 3:15 p.m. a.m. He refuses to go to the gym. He refuses to understand that your physicality and your mentality are linked. He refuses to do the extra hours for work. He refuses to be intentional about relationships. He refuses to be intentional about family time. He refuses to be intentional about everything else in his life and his faith goals. And because of that, he is now a fat slob sitting over there, just sitting on a couch alone because his family hates him. He has no significant other. He is out of shape because he didn't go work out. And then I feel the other side part of me begging me because I could have the life I wanted when I'm 35. And either I'm going to have it or I'm going to have this life. And I almost fear failure more than I want success, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I fear being that person because you see those people. And those are the people that I really feel bad for. Those are actually the people where I wrote the book for, because I feel them because it's so easy to slip down those rabbit
Mhm.
holes. Because Dave Ramsey talks about the snowball of debt, but I also like to think about it as a snowball of life, because those little thoughts turn into little actions, and those little actions turn into bigger actions, and then you just coast. So those can either be good actions or
Yeah.
they can be bad actions, but either way, you're going downhill and you're going to get older.
Good.
So you can really either set yourself up for success, or you can really set yourself up for failure. And that's why I just want somebody to buy this book and read it, because I hope it brings you a little bit of motivation. But the motivation doesn't last. So one of the chapters is motivation doesn't last, but discipline lasts forever. And the reason being is because after somebody hears this, maybe they're motivated for a little bit, but that motivation is going to fade. You're not going to be motivated tomorrow morning, because tonight it's easy. You're watching this, you're inside or you're in the car, it's warm, it's cozy. You're telling yourself, yeah, I'm going to get up and run, or yeah, I'm going to set these goals. But then you wake up tomorrow and it's cold. You're next to your
Yeah.
significant other. You're like,
Yeah.
oof, I don't know if I want to get up and do that. That's when discipline comes into play, because you're not going to be motivated. So that's why you were asking me earlier about blocking time off my calendar. On my calendar, I have when I work out. My goal on my calendar is a zero blank space. So I schedule everything. Now somebody's arguing with me and they're like, I'm not somebody who can stick to a calendar because I have kids, or I have this, or I have that. I'm just going to be very blunt with that person right now. That's a poverty mindset. If you cannot stick to a calendar, you cannot be successful in any realm. So it doesn't have to be money, but it is just you cannot be successful in anything, because somebody doesn't want to hear this, but it's your audience that needs to.
Mhm.
Other people do not care that you have kids. Now, I want to. Now that's going to be controversial. Somebody's going to get mad at me, but just like with me, nobody cares that I'm sick. Their dogs still need to be trained. There's things that still need to be done, and my employees still need to be paid because they rely on me. If I don't show up, they don't get paid. They don't care that I have. If I had kids, they wouldn't care if I had to take them to school or other things. You have to work around that, and you still have to get what's done, what needs to be done. You still have to figure out a way to do it. There's always a way around it. There's a solution to every problem. So if you're missing work because of kids, sorry to tell you, your boss doesn't care. He can't, because if you don't bring it in, if you don't do what you need to do as an employee, the company fails. And all of those employees, the rest of the people don't look at it like this, but the rest of the people, their income and their families' food and clothing relies on that business being successful. So if that boss keeps letting you get away with missing work because your kids make you miss work, it ruins everyone else in the office's life, because now the business fails. And so your boss
Wow.
isn't a bad guy for not wanting you to miss work and not caring about that you have kids. Because if he cares about you missing work because of your kids, now he has to care about everyone's issue of missing work because of whatever reason it is, and this business fails. So you're looking at him like he's a tyrant or he's a bad guy. He's not. He actually cares more about the coworkers than you do, because if he fails or the business fails, the rest of them fail also.
Yeah,
So you just have to schedule what it is, figure out a way to do it. There's always a solution to every single problem. You just have to have that mindset that there is a way to do it.
that's so
So
good. That's
it's
so
you have
good.
to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. And, when there's always gonna be an obstacle is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And when you are very clear-minded about your goals, about what your 35-year-old self wants, then it becomes easier to push those obstacles to the side because you have a bigger vision. And
Yeah.
this is something I've been thinking about because I have some specific goals that I'm working on. And I started thinking, how can I what are some hacks, some life hacks that I can bring in to pushing the obstacles aside? Because some of the obstacles are big,
Yeah.
and they have emotional components to them and trigger kind of things that want to trip you up. And I was thinking about when I used to do open ocean racing in stand-up paddling. I haven't done it in a while. It's not quite the same out here in Virginia where I'm a little bit landlocked in the near the mountains. But when I was out in Hawaii, I used to race, and one of the things that I learned very quickly was that when you want to pass somebody, let's say that you're like 3rd or 4th behind the leader. If you wanna pass the person in front of you, you actually cannot match their pace because you will only ever be equal with them, and so you have to match the pace of the leader if you're trying to pass everybody else.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like if you're paddling and you have a stroke rate or something like that, you have to be really aware that the person right in front of you is really inconsequential and they're actually in your way to getting to the goal that you want. And it occurred to me that applying that to other obstacles is so powerful because so many times we look at the obstacle that's right in front of us and we think that's what we need to deal with, but really what we need to focus on is the finish line and getting there in the time that we want to, if it's a personal best or whatever it is. But so then as I'm paddling for my time, not to keep up with the person in front of me. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, so it's very powerful for me because then if as these obstacles come up, then I can look at this obstacle and say, "You're in my way. I'm not focusing on you. I'm
Yeah.
focusing on the me that I am working toward." And that's just my hack for it, and I
Yeah.
think everybody comes up with their own, but that's a little mental game that I play to go, "Nope, not my circus, not my monkeys, get past it because there's a me ahead that I'm striving for."
Absolutely. And I want to touch on that because I think there's another thing that people really struggle with, and which is because of the age of Instagram and Facebook and all these other things, people's lives look way better than they actually are.
Yeah,
So a lot of people don't know this, but most accountants or lawyers or these people with high paying jobs, they live paycheck to paycheck, just like people who make $20,000 a year do, because as people's income goes up, their expenses go up as well. So they just match it. And then most
interesting.
people are buying things they don't need to impress people whose opinions don't matter. So, or they're doing things because they're scared of what other people will think. So, for example, I lived and granted I was in college off and on most of the time, but technically I lived with my parents until I was 26. Now, somebody who's 18 or 20 or 21 or 35 or 42 needs to hear this. You might need to move back in with your parents. Just because if you are struggling and you are too worried that somebody's going to judge you for living with your parents or for not having your life together, and so now you have a $700 a month car payment or whatever the car payment is, and now you also have the rent payment and now you or the house payment or whatever, it might be time to sell the car, get a bike, move back home with the parents, sell whatever it is so that you don't have those expenses, so that you can take a step back to fly forward. Because what I did is while I was working, I was still, when I first started working for Clay, I was still living at home with my parents. And I didn't care what my friends thought, because they made fun of me. They were like, dude, I moved out when I was 18. Dude, I
Yeah.
moved, blah, blah, blah. And then at the time, I didn't have much to show for it. It's not like I stayed with my parents and immediately I was now super successful and had businesses and wrote
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
I still had to struggle for it. So it was like I was still eating ramen noodles and living with the parents. It's not like I'm driving a Lamborghini and to my parents'
Mhm.
house. It's not like Failure to Launch. It's not like that movie. So it's
Yeah.
it was I had to not care so that I could move forward, because there's somebody who's like my buddy's 39. He's like, but if I did that, then I'm not going to be able to do this, or I'm not going to be able to do that. All I can tell people is you're going to be able to pick your struggles. So you're going to
Yeah.
struggle no matter what. So you can either struggle to put food on a table, or you can struggle with not watching Instagram or Netflix. Or
Mhm.
so the other one, this is a big one for me that I have on here. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. 1 Timothy 5:8. So if you do not provide for your own household, you are literally worse than a non-believer. And that's the Bible. So it's a controversial book. You can go read it yourself. I believe in it.
Mhm.
You might not, but that's a very important thing, that you must provide for your own family, and you're going to be able to pick your struggles. So you might as well pick one
Yeah.
that's going to better your life later on.
This is so true. I have a question about the age element.
Sure.
You have a friend who's 39. You've talked about your friends who are 18. Do you see a difference? This attitude. There seems to be an attitude, and I think it's confined to certain age groups, but maybe it's not. And I want to get your perspective on this. There is an attitude that things shouldn't be as hard as they are. I see this a lot on the internet, that people are upset because of how much things cost and how much they're struggling, and
Yeah.
that they there seems to be this idea that the three-bedroom house, the 2 cars, the things that, like my parents have, probably your parents or Clay's generation or even older, they have those things, but somehow it seems lost to people what it took to get them. Do you see this attitude confined to your age group, say millennials? Millennials get a bad rap, but is it just millennials that are thinking this way, or do you see it across the board?
I do see it across the board, because somebody's asking, or they say, well, if I should have done it then. That's typically if they're in the older age group. They're like, well, I should have done it then, now it's too late. Or well, back then I had it this way. Or you have the people in the middle where they're like, oh, right when I got going, the prices went up or whatever. And if I was speaking to one of my friends, I'm going to speak to the audience like I was speaking to one of my friends, because I'm very blunt with people. Suck
Mhm.
it up, buttercup, because you can't change it. So it's like you're playing chess or you're playing basketball. I'll use
Yeah,
basketball because I played in college. It would be like that when they make that argument or they make that excuse. It would be the same as somebody who's playing basketball and they wish they could run out of bounds and lower the rim to 6 foot and be able to dunk. You can't. So the rules of life are the rules of life. You wishing and
yeah,
hoping isn't a thing, but
right.
you actually doing something about it is. So either you can suck it up, buttercup, or you can sit there and you can sit there with the poverty mindset, and you can be down and out, and then you can let that negatively infect your whole brain, and then you become depressed because you say things like, "Oh, I was either then or was it." I'll tell you this: most people nowadays are living better than kings ever did. You can DoorDash food to your home. You don't have to get off the couch for somebody to bring you food. Think
Yeah,
about the king there with the feathers and the grapes. You have that. All you
yeah,
have to do is go on your smartphone and do it. You can communicate with somebody 50,000 miles away in an instant. And
yeah,
you have life. It's never been easier to be successful. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's never been easier. So
right,
you have
right.
so anyone that has ideas, like if you're building a business or with the dog training, I'm not trying to reinvent how dog training's done. I'm not trying to reinvent how people wrote books. I'm not trying to reinvent how people own businesses. What I'm trying to do is stand on those shoulders of giants, of people who have already done it, and I learn from their mistakes, and then I do it.
Mm.
And just because, like Robert Kiyosaki, he wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad in 1990s. I forget the exact date. I want to say 1998, but I forget when. But he wrote the book back then, but it's still applicable today. He's still a very smart person, and I can use what he's taught to propel me forward. Where I think people, they always want a quick fix or they want to hack. So what's happened is a lot of people get caught up on Instagram or get caught up on these things, and they see these people and they think they're overnight successes, but they don't understand what it took to get there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can either suck it up or you can keep being depressed about it. I don't know what to tell them, other than anyone who says that it's really bad. Like, one, it's a bad thing to think, but two, it has no validity to it
Mhm.
because it's never been easier.
Yeah.
So is it
Yeah.
harder to buy a house? Sure, but at least it's you don't have to build it like you used to. At least you
Yeah.
don't have to hunt saber-toothed
Yeah.
tigers or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's never
Yeah.
it's never been easier. So and that's, I don't want people to mistake that and say that I think I'm saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's never been easier, because think
There's
of all your competition. Because life is competition, so you're going up against somebody. Most people, they only want to work 4 days a week now. They don't want to put in a full-time job. They don't actually want to work. They don't want to do this. And so your competition is so weak. I mean, you think of all the school shootings, or you think of all these things happening. That's happening by weak men or women. That's not happening because of strong men or strong women. That's
Mhm.
happening because of weak men and weak men. So we
Yeah.
come. I don't want to mess up the saying, but strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And
Yeah.
so what we have right now is we have a time where we have the weakest men ever in the history of ever. And now they're creating really hard times for people. So we can look at it and I can say, well, all these people, Joe Biden, he can't even walk across stage and he's in charge of this and he's making life harder, blah, blah, blah. We can say that. Um, or we can just deal with it. And we can think, okay, no matter what you put in my way, I'm going to be successful.
Yeah.
So you have one or two
Yeah.
options, but the option one of just blaming somebody else, um, another quote, and you guys can get a little mindset. But Jocko Willink, he's a Navy SEAL, and he says, extreme ownership. Leaders must own everything in the world. There's no one else to blame. So you have to own everything.
Mm.
So you can either push it off on somebody else, but that does you no good.
Yeah.
So Jordan Peterson talks about, Jordan Peterson's awesome. He's a clinical psychologist, but he talks about there's nothing worse that you can tell someone other than it's not their fault. Because if you do that, you immediately strip the power away from them. So if I tell you you are perfect the way you are, and that it's not your fault, I immediately strip all power away from you.
Mm.
Because if it's not your fault, there's nothing you can do. But if it is your fault,
Yeah.
then you can change something. So, and then you have
See.
power over your world again. And that's the biggest difference in my worldview versus a lot of people's worldview, is they want to complain about other people or whatever. But
Mhm.
anything that happens to me in life is my fault, and I believe that to a fault. So I don't care if I walk into Target and someone decks me in the face. I'm blaming myself. Because or I can have the mindset that, hey, I have no control over anything,
Mhm.
and then I just get bitter and I can't get better. So I believe that to an extreme. You don't have to believe it to that much to be successful, but for me, I
Yeah.
feel like I go through life easier
Mhm.
because I believe everything's my fault. Where if I leave everything
Interesting.
up to other people, it's then I'm just like a feather floating through the wind. I have no actual control.
Right,
I
right,
just
and
drift
yeah.
from one place to the other place.
It's personal responsibility. And when we talk about age too, I think about so many of the remarkable things that have been done through history have actually been done by people in the second half of their life. There's a lot of people who had inventions or built things. I mean, look at President Trump. He became president in his 70s. And but there's other people too. Do you know who Jacques Cousteau is? Have you ever heard of him?
Jacques Cousteau.
Yes.
I've heard the name, but I have no
So
idea.
okay,
No.
he's like the father of scuba diving. He invented
Okay.
the underwater breathing apparatus, and he didn't even get his ship that he used for exploration, the Calypso, until he was I think he was 46 or 47 years old. And so this was a dream that he had, but he didn't even really start, seriously working toward that goal and that dream until he was in his 40s. And they had to sell some things that were kind of precious to them, he and his wife, to make this dream come true. So there was a lot of sacrifice involved, not to mention that they could have died every time they went underwater, but it came at high cost and high risk, but it was so important, and so everything that we know in terms of scuba diving today was started by this one man in his late 40s because he just wouldn't give up.
Yeah.
And so that's I think that's a really good example, and they didn't have nearly the advantages that we have today. He was born in 1910. So, it's just that came to my mind as you're saying this. It's there's a never quit attitude that you have that successful people have. And what you're saying about taking personal responsibility resonates so much with me, and I hope that it resonates with people in our audience. This is a common thread of the Mary Grace TV show and the shows that we do is taking personal responsibility and not living as a victim. And I know that we're going to see people in the comments who will say, yeah, but you don't know my situation. I think that if you've gotten anything from what JT is saying today, there's no buts. Everybody has a choice. Everybody has a choice, including you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I learned something from a dog. So I just went to Las Vegas to learn from a dog trainer because I do ongoing
Yeah.
learning so I can be better. But he said, people either have a testimony or they're still going through it. So that hit hard because I still don't I don't talk about my past, and maybe it's I've narrowed it down to it's probably one or two reasons. Either one, it's based on what he said, I'm still going through it, which could be, but two, or it could be 'cause I've just switched my mindset so much that it doesn't matter,
Mm,
and I just have to like
yeah,
what has to get done anyway. So it doesn't
sure.
matter. Like I could just ramble on about my past, but it like people are gonna hear it and they're going to think, well, it's different. So it doesn't really matter. I just know that every
Mhm.
single person listening to this has gone through something or
Yeah,
is going through something. You're not
yeah,
going to go through life without going through anything. And so I just want to over explain that I don't want my goals to be their goals. They don't have to be as extreme as me. I just know I get one life,
yeah.
and everyone does. So you just get one shot at it.
Good.
And so you might as well live it to the best of your abilities. And you either design the life you want or you live the life you don't by default. So you're
So
either
good.
gonna coast through life and you're gonna get pushed back and forth over and over, or you can design the life you want. You can have a calendar, you can put what you need to do on it, and you can stick to it and better your future self. Or you can not stick to it, and your future self can be 400 pounds sitting on a couch while everyone hates them. So that's kind of how you do it. So my suggestion to people today would, could I talk about this stuff in my book? And that, but the big thing is I also give actionable steps. So, because if I get people motivated, it's cool, but it's not going to last. So I wrote the book short so people would actually read it. Cause when I was writing it, a bunch of people told me I need to front load it. So I need to put only the important information in the first 3 chapters because no one reads past that. My thought was, well, why don't I just make a book short enough where it could just be 3 chapters if I wanted to,
Yeah.
so people just read all of it. And I try to keep it engaging and short and easy to read because I don't want to be like a doctor or a lawyer who they talk over people because it makes them feel better about themselves that they're smarter than other people.
Sure.
I wanted to make it very easy to read and actionable so people can actually change their own life. Because if you change your own life, now you can go change others and you can actually make a difference
Good.
on the world where you speak to your audience a lot, and a lot of conservative podcasts do about making changes. But what right do you have to make changes in the world if you can't even, make your bed or control your own room or your own household? If you can't control
Mm,
those things, you have no right telling other people how to live. So you have to get your own life together before you go out and tell the world, hey, you should do it this way, you should do it that way. You have to get yourself and your life in order and your family in order. Because if you can't reconnect with family, if you can't make your own family like you, or you can't whatever, one, it's a you thing. But now you're going to go tell other people how to live their life. It's hypocritical. So you have to get your own life in order before you go try to make a change. And so my hope is I can help somebody get their life in order so that they can go make a change, and then the world can be a better place one person at a time. And that's kind of my goal and why I wrote the book.
So good. I think this is a good place to stop.
Sure.
It's so powerful. Everything that you're saying, we could just go on and on.
Yeah.
You're going to come back, like I said, because everybody needs to hear what you have to say at least 5 more times. And so everybody, please get the book so that next time JT comes, you'll be able to ask questions and comment from a place of more understanding and greater depth, because you would have read the book. And what I learned from my millionaire mentor, it's right there on his website, JT Lawson, the Millionaire Millennial. And he's so filled with wisdom, 29 years old. The millennial generation is not lost. We have people like JT, and he is leading the way. Thank you so much for being here today, JT Lawson. It's always a pleasure to have you here on Mary Grace TV.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me come on.
I'm Mary Grace, and I am one of the biggest fans of MyPillow because they have quality America First products that are just made right here in the country, and they last. We have the towels, and I have a big issue with towels that shrink up after the first washing. The MyPillow towels stay color fast, they stay in shape, and they stay that way for years after repeated washings. You can't ask for better. Plus, they actually work. When somebody buys from MyPillow using the promo code Mary Grace, that does a couple of things. It brings in a little bit of an affiliate commission to our company, and it helps us to pay the bills, keep the lights on, keep the internet going, travel to places that we do to give you remote content. And it also helps MyPillow by giving them the support of people who genuinely value quality and companies that support real people right here in the United States and employ people all over this country and give back to this country. Go directly to mypillow.com, use promo code Mary Grace, and buy everything you need for the home. There's no need to spend time shopping anywhere else. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get your towels, pillows, sheets, robes, dog beds, pet beds, cat beds, whatever it is that you want for the home. Go to mypillow.com, promo code Mary Grace. It's easy. Don't waste your time anywhere else. mypillow.com, promo code Mary Grace. Thank you. Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. Officialsynapse.com. It's official, synapse.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show.